That old clock on the wall tells us it's time for another episode of Learn, Teach, Lead, where each week we explore how educators, just like you, are using innovative and creative instructional strategies, including how to leverage AI to improve teaching and learning.
Each week, we share real classroom stories, tools and tips to help you save time, personalize instruction, and lead with confidence.
Hi, I'm Janine.
I'm Robyn. Let's get started with today's Friday Debrief.
Hi, Robyn. I'm so excited. We're finally back at school. Happy September. Welcome back.
Happy September. I'm so excited to be back and back on our first Learn, Teach, Lead podcast of the year.
Yes, and we have a lot of great news to share. I'm so excited for those of you who have been following our journey with using AI to gather data on students and design targeted instruction. Our ultimate goal was to improve NJSLA test scores, and indeed the test scores are in. So we're going to spend a little bit of time unpacking the test scores this week. So we thought a great structure for our episode would be to start with the fabulous moment of the week. And our fabulous moment of the week is that our NJSLA test scores were outstanding. So I'm so excited. They really, really were. So kudos to you, Robyn, and to all of your colleagues. The amazing work that you did really paid off. After months and months of strategic prep, targeted instruction, and of course, our team effort here at the ranch. Really, both students, staff, everyone pulled together and the kids rose to the challenge. So we're incredibly proud of their growth and their perseverance. And let's unpack that a little bit this week.
Okay. The big reveal.
Yes. Okay. So the big reveal here. The first bar graph that you're looking at is the 2024-25 ELA third grade score. So this was last year's students. Here we're looking at the year before. So it's not the same kids. We're not tracking the same cohort. We're comparing one third grade with another third grade. But you can see here, we did pretty well on the test, but we didn't have that many students scoring in the exceeding range. Look at how many students we have scoring in the exceeding range here. I mean, we absolutely lifted up. I think we might have had 14 kids in all who scored an 850 on the NJSLA. I mean, it was pretty amazing how many students scored a top score. Now, we moved a lot of kids from approaching to meeting standards. You can see that we had more kids the year before approaching, but this year on the bar graph here on the right, we moved a lot more of those kids up. So we still have some work to do, pulling students who are our lowest students, moving them up. This year's NJSLA is going to be adaptive, so we may, see some changes there. But if you want to see the impact of targeted instruction, look no further. Right here, you can see what an impact it makes, especially for those kids who are on the bubble. We moved from 16% in exceeding to 36% of our students scoring in the exceeding range. So
Wow.
I'm sharing my screen there, but I just thought that would be, worth noting. Okay, so
it's more than worth noting. It's worth celebrating and jumping up and down and cheering, because truthfully, I always say it's a collaborative effort. And I had those students in my class and they are truly more confident for it. And I can see now that I'm moving to fourth grade, the transition,
right.
FYI, I'm moving to fourth grade.
Well, and this is going to be very interesting because you do have some students who are looping with you. So now we'll truly be able to track the impact of these interventions and using AI to analyze the data on a particular cohort. Now, here someone might say you're comparing apples and oranges with that data that I just showed because they're two different groups of kids. That may be, but we still saw a marked improvement in the number of students who were in that higher level range and moving students from the bubble up. But this year, it will give us a whole new set of data to work with. So you want to start with your thoughts about some of the small shifts that we made that made a big ripple in our approach to instruction.
It certainly was a big ripple. And I have to say before anything, and again, shout out to all of my colleagues and my teachers, but also shout out to you, Janine, because teachers thrive when their leaders empower them. And you certainly supported us to learn. You gave us those tools to teach, and you gave us the power to lead. So thank you. You should be celebrating this as well for your success at the ranch.
You're the best. Thank you.
Now, you might ask me, what is one thing that made the biggest difference last year when I was preparing my students in literacy class and for this NJSLA? And honestly, it's really hard to say just one thing. So I'm going to start with this acronym. And you know me, I love my acronyms. The GROW approach. You know me, I love my acronyms. So to say this GROW approach truly helped me find student success with this acronym. And I'm going to keep saying it, the GROW approach. It came out of my own reflection and my own work from my third grade class for the last 2 years. Oh, and fun fact, as you know, it also ties in with our theme this year of Let's Get Growing. And I also want my kids to grow, not just be great test takers, but grow in their independence and their confidence. And wow, did they ever this year, because our scores soared last year on that NJSLA using this GROW approach. Now, you might say to me, what is this GROW approach? G, gather. R, refocus. O, organize. W, watch. And you might say, well, what's the biggest thing that impacted your instruction last year to help get these kids into this wonderful range of success? It was GROW. And I sat down and I really reflected on it. And I said, it was a bunch of things. So I'm going to put it in an acronym for everybody. And it's GROW. And for me, it's the anchor to the process of success. And it reminds me that my process starts with gathering the right data, refocusing and targeting instruction in real time, organizing it with friendly structure, and finally, watching the students succeed. And that's how I was able to refine my planning strategies I use in my class, like my iced tea and my BMMME, which we will talk about in later episodes. But I turned these strategies into tools that worked, and now they're data supported, which is awesome. So let me give you a quick summary of how I used GROW in my class last year to help them to meet those standards and work with my colleagues. When I gathered the literacy data last year for my class, I noticed certain students struggled to explain their writing and their thinking. Instead of reteaching everyone, I used rubrics and AI to gather and target my instruction and immediately pulled a small group. I did not wait. And that's the beauty of real-time data. I refocused and intervened immediately. And then I organized that lesson with one of my data-aligned planning structures so they had a clear roadmap for their writing. So within a few weeks, I was watching these students excel, gain confidence. And really, those struggling students went from 2s to 3s to 4s. Now, the beauty of the GROW approach is that it's simple enough to remember, but powerful enough to dive into and make real change. So here's where we're going to go for Learn, Teach, Lead. You ready?
Ready.
Right. Over the next 4 weeks, I'm going to break down each letter of GROW to show you exactly how I use this process in my class and give you the tricks as an educator to transform your planning and teaching. Because what teacher does not love tricks to transform their classroom and their instruction? But for now, remember this: grow, grow, and grow. It's the word that anchored me. It's the process that helped my students. And it's the theme that guides me forward for this year in 4th grade.
That's fantastic, Robyn. I'm very excited about that because I love the idea that we're going to unpack this over the next 4 weeks, because we've been working on this. We're up to our eyeballs in it, but we're trying to, anything that we're learning, anything that, we're doing in the classroom with kids, our goal here is to turn it around to help other educators, right?
For sure.
And I mean, in all honesty, maybe what we're doing is a little confusing to people who aren't in the classroom with us. So to unpack it as you know, 1 week at a time, following the exact steps you took. Oh my goodness, I just invite any teacher who's out there, try this right along with us. So tune in on Fridays, listen to what we're doing, follow along with Robyn, and you know, hopefully people will share their information with us too, because I just think it's so exciting. Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm super excited.
Yeah, and I don't know, I just like, honestly, I knew the kids' scores were going to improve a little bit, because how could they not? But I just didn't anticipate that they would improve so much. And when I look back over what we did, I mean, obviously it was the structure, gathering the data, it was the structured writing that we provided to them, give them information exactly about what they needed to do, but we also incorporated some test taking strategies as well. And we learned that from their data. We could see what they knew how to do, what they didn't know how to do.
And all those pieces of Grow will highlight each section of what we did last year.
Yes, yes, I love that. I love that. So let's shift gears for a little bit. You know, I have a long commute home, so I think about random things on the way home. But I was thinking about, you know, getting ready for this episode and how we could kind of bring people along. So I just wanted to share a few of my thoughts with you about what's been going on in my mind related to how we're leveraging AI and what our responsibility is, you know, as educators to continually learn, teach, and lead. And, you know, I've been doing this for over 30 years now. And during that whole time that I've been in education, I don't think I can ever remember a time when we weren't talking about developing students as lifelong learners. I mean, in fact, the mission statement right here in our district for many years talked about students being lifelong learners. And I think that's a common phrase in many mission statements for educational institutions. We don't want students to stop learning when the school bell rings. We want them to carry this habit forward into the rest of their lives. But here's the sad truth about what I think I see happening in education. We as the adults don't always prioritize learning the same way that we expect that from children. And sometimes I think we can fall short as models for what it really means to be a lifelong learner. And I think it's important for us to model lifelong learning. And in our profession, I feel like sometimes professional learning feels like an imposition. Teachers are busy, schedules are jam-packed, our mental bandwidth is limited at the end of the day. And even when schools introduce professional learning structures, I should say, like professional learning communities, you know, PLCs, we can find it to be a struggle to fit them in. You know, unlike student learning, the teacher rarely has time built into the school day, into the traditional school schedule for professional learning. So I think this is one of our greatest challenges in education today. And Michael Fullen, as we know, a leading voice on school reform, reminds us that if we don't change the culture of learning for adults, we won't change it for students. And if we want to see students learning as a lifelong pursuit, I do think educators have to embody that same spirit as well. So I guess as I'm driving along thinking about all of these things, that's why I see so much value in, you know, what we're doing here, creating spaces like Learn, Teach, Lead, even something like a small or a short podcast at the end of a long week can offer teachers a moment to pause and reflect on new ideas, share wins, explore innovative practices. All these things are important, but they don't need to be time intensive. But they do need to be consistent. So my dream, I guess, would be for all schools to embed a dedicated time each week built into the regular school day, whether it's at the start or the end of the week, where teachers and leaders can just sit together, wrestle with new ideas, discuss challenges, and grow as a community of learners. And I know there are many schools that are doing that. I just think overall in education, we have room to grow there. So in this same vision, making time for adult learning wouldn't be conditional. I mean, wouldn't be optional or occasional, but it would be an expected structure within our school setting. So again, don't get me wrong, teachers definitely commit to professional learning, but I feel like it's sprinkled in here and there, and it's not really a natural and expected structure within the school day. So alongside of this, I was also thinking that educators should develop a stronger sense of urgency about professional growth. I mean, the world is changing very quickly, and our students have to change with it. So John Cotter has said, he's written extensively about organizational change. He's noted urgency is the first step in mobilizing people to act. And I agree with that. Without a sense of urgency, we easily drift into complacency, but with too much urgency, we feel a sense of panic. So we don't want that. We want that nice balance. And I do think that the COVID-19 pandemic, it was a striking example of this dynamic. Before 2020, teachers were using a little technology in their daily practice, but when schools set down, that urgency ramped up. It almost ramped up to the point of panic, but it did show that when there's a sense of urgency, we can very quickly learn new things. Like overnight, teachers were learning Zoom and Google Classroom and Google Meets and countless other platforms. So yeah, a little bit of it was clunky in the beginning and the learning curve was steep, but that sheer urgency of the situation accelerated teacher growth more than any professional development program could have done. So I think the same way about artificial intelligence. It gives us a similar kind of urgency. Just like in the COVID era of technology, it's forcing us to rethink our practices, our tools, and even the role of the teacher. Do we really want to wait for another crisis to force us into growth? No, I'd rather we embrace this urgency now so we don't need to handle change while we're slipping into panic. And so that's why I think it's so important that educators learn about AI, learn to leverage it, and use it responsibly in the classroom. So I guess that's just what's been on my mind. I thought I'd jot down some of my thoughts. And my hope is that this week, everyone who's listened to this episode will carve out a moment for their own professional growth. And not just because it's mandated, not because it's another thing to do on your to-do list, but because as educators, our willingness to learn may be the most powerful lesson that we can teach our kids. We're always modeling for them. And in the end, that's what it's all about. And that's what it really means to learn, teach, and lead.
Okay, we're going to jump to the next episode of the next part of our podcast, the teaser for next week. Next Friday, I'll start with the letter G, gather the data. I'll walk you through how I collected real-time insights, sometimes with the help of AI, and turned them into small targeted power moves that made a big difference. You will not want to miss that.
My power move challenge for everyone is to take 15 minutes to enhance your own professional learning. Apply what you have learned with a sense of urgency, share with a colleague, try out a new idea in your classroom, ponder a difficult problem, or seek out expert resources to help guide your thinking. This week, you should be learning. This week, you should be teaching. And this week, you should be leading.
My power move as a teacher this week is to ready, set, grow. Take 5 minutes to grow by celebrating your students' wins and watch their confidence bloom. Pull 2 to 3 students aside who showed significant growth and let them know you noticed, because recognition builds confidence, and confident learners are always more willing to take risks.
Sounds great. Our AI tip of the week is to use ChatGPT to analyze some writing samples, make sure you've taken the students' names off of them, and compare them against an NJSLA rubric or whatever rubric your district is using. Simply paste a sample of the student's writing and ask AI to identify the strengths and suggest some next steps using language aligned to the scoring rubric. This will save you time, and it will provide you with actionable feedback to guide your instruction. And so, Robyn, it looks like that old clock on the wall tells us it's time to wrap up another episode of Learn,
Teach,
and Lead.
As always, we hope you'll take what you've learned, teach it forward, and lead with purpose. Thanks for spending part of your week with us. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.